My name is John Hossack, President and CEO of VKI Studios, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. Our topic today is Taking Your Website Worldwide, International SEO, and it's presented by VKI Studios. For those of you who are not familiar with VKI Studios, we're an online performance marketing firm that helps clients acquire more traffic via search marketing and email, improve user experience and conversion rates via testing, and measure user behavior via analytics to provide actionable insights that will allow you to make changes to improve your website's net revenue. In today's webinar, we'll be going over a number of very important topics for everyone who's trying to acquire more international traffic to their website. These topics will include the technical aspects of SEO, domains, directories, and subdomains, multilingual handling, content optimization, language localization, tools for language localization, content strategy, link building, web analytics, international traffic segmentation, and tracking country-specific search engines. As you may have questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to submit them via GoToMeeting or via Twitter using the hashtag #VKISEO, and we'll do our best to address all those questions at the end. Today's webinar will be presented by Annie Lopez, VKI Studios SEO manager, who moved to Vancouver from Barcelona, where he had spent more than 11 years as a web developer, project manager, and most recently for the last 4+ years as an SEO consultant. In Europe, Annie worked for well-known agencies where he had the opportunity to lead SEO campaigns, workshops, and the like for major global brands such as Nokia, Carrefour, Amadeus Global Travel, Mundia, which is an Ancestry.com property, and many others. Most of these projects required targeting several countries, multiple languages, and different cultures. This exposure has given Annie a front row seat to the intricacies of international SEO for very large organizations in very competitive marketplaces. Annie is currently the SEO manager at VKI Studios, and he also co-organizes Vancouver's SEM Meetup group, and you can follow him, as you can see, on Twitter with his handle @AnnieLopez. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Annie.
Hi, everybody. I would like to remember you that we have a very specific hashtag to follow up on Twitter. And yep, we can go ahead with all the slides we have prepared for you. So again, as John was mentioning, this is the index, the menu we have for today. And we will start with the cultural aspects of the SEO for international multilingual scenarios. So language. Search engine is a thing based on language, and this is what we are going to talk about, how to handle the multi-language thing. So this is just a short overview how the distribution of the languages of every specific language along the internet. English is the most popular, but in global terms, in global numbers, the rest of the countries altogether, all the languages, sorry, is about the double. So there's a huge market out there to reach. This is something to take into account not only for SEO, but also for the general marketing plan of any company trying to target some other markets abroad. So regional context is going to influence your strategy. Sure, we have to know the different habits in every culture more than a country. Sometimes culture is going across borders, or even in a single country we have different habits and cultures. So an example, Mediterranean countries, internet use is driven by social factors, while in the Nordic countries there are more functional purposes. So keeping this kind of things in mind is going to help us not only to organize our marketing campaigns abroad, but also to get some insights while analyzing the traffic, as we will see at the end of the webinar. Analyze the traffic or the data we see in Google Analytics or your Analytics box. And going more granular, local habits. It's something to take into account too, because again, it's going to explain quite a lot of the things we are going to see coming through the analytics data, and it's something we have to take into account if we want to really know and segment and understand our visitors, our clients, anywhere around the globe. So an example, Spanish people, how they fill their online cards. We usually do it at noon, while the British do it at 8, and the Swedish usually at 9. So a big difference between all around Europe. And let's get into the most popular topic for technical SEO. Domains, directories, and subdomains. Every time somebody's talking about subdirectories, directories, domains, it's a nice talking about. Usually Google also lately is writing about some articles. They mention all the possibilities. They don't really decide or go in favor of any of those. So that's why we are going to get deep into this this topic and explain the good and the bad of every single options we have. So just for a start, what about continental top-level domains like .eu or .asia? From an SEO perspective, they are quite useless. The only reason I can find to buy these domains is for a protective reason. You don't want nobody to buy these domains with your brand, especially if your brand is there. But the problem with these continental domains, they are not related directly to any country. And so from a search engine perspective, country is the right level to handle everything. So they're putting attention to countries, not to continents. So and besides that, this technical reason, again, as I was mentioning before in the example of the shopping cart, Europe or Asia is not a uniform cultural entity. We have quite a lot of different cultures in every continent. So it makes no sense also from this perspective. So these are the common situations we are going to face when going international. We can have a country with several languages. We can have one language across borders in several countries. For example, Spanish is official language in 27 countries, so it's a nice situation to handle. So how we can manage that? How can we organize our domains, subdirectories per language, main domain, directories, domains by country? So this is what we are going to discuss right now. Usually the best option, if possible, is to have a domain by country. So we have a brand or the name of the domain, so we can buy every country, every CCTLD for every country. .com usually is associated to US, although we can buy the US domain too. FR for France, DE for Germany, CN for China, or any other. Usually it's the most expensive solution. More technical resources are required. It's a little bit more complicated to manage and coordinate. And some other questions aside, like, okay, we're going to have one CMS to manage all the content in different countries. We're going to have a CMS for every country. So there are some more questions involving that solution, but it's usually the right one, if possible, if we are going to be able to manage from a technical perspective and from a resources perspective. If this solution is not available for any reason, the second best solution is to have having directories by country or language. I will compare later with the subdomains thing. We will see why I prefer this second option, these directories by country as a second option. In the examples you see the screen, we have main domain, targeting US, and we have directories by country or language for France, Germany, or in the cases where we have one language for different countries like Spain, Argentina, or Mexico, we can have folders naming the country, the language, and the country. So we have ES/AR for Argentina or MX for Mexico. What happens if we have a single country with several languages? It could be the case of Spain, where we have 4 official languages, but it could be also the case of Canada, where we have 2. So in this case, again, we are coming with the solution having directories by country language or language country in that case. So this way we can solve the 2 basic scenarios we can have. And why I prefer to have directories instead of subdomains. They are cheaper, less technical resources required. They are more simple to manage and coordinate usually. And directories are contributing, this is the most important reason. Directories are contributing to increase the general relevancy of a domain, and directories themselves, they are inheriting the relevancy of the main domain. We will compare right now with the subdomains strategy. And just one advice, follow please the standard ISO 2-letter codes. Don't be creative while naming your folders, your directories. So if we are targeting Spain, the right standard code is ES, not SPA or Spain or whatever. So the third option, and I think is the worst one for the reasons you can see in the screen, why not having subdomains by country or language? First of all, search engines tend to consider subdomains almost as a completely different entity than a domain for historical reasons, for technical reasons. So subdomains, they take a considerable amount of time to gain traction within the search engine results pages. They don't inherit the domain's relevancy. You can have a very relevant domain, but at the moment you create a subdomain, this subdomain is not getting the relevancy, inheriting the relevancy of the domain. And it could be the other way around. You can have a very relevant subdomain, but this is not going to help increase the relevancy of the main domain. So these are the reasons why we don't consider subdomains the best strategy. It's quite popular. You can see this strategy, some big brands or websites, they are using it. It doesn't mean it's the best option. Your situation has got to be analyzed, and sometimes the reason why they are having this strategy, splitting countries or languages by subdomains, is not for international SEO or multi-language handling. They are distributing in subdomains by for technical reasons, like distributing the traffic along different servers. So before copying or analyzing what everybody is doing outside, just take a look and analyze your strategy and your options. Another typical question we used to have about IPs: should I host every language or every country section of my website in different countries? That was a must time ago, like 3-4 years, but IPs by country are not relevant anymore, especially because search engines directly detect the TRD by country, so they can associate the TLD with the country. And Webmaster Tools, Google Webmaster Tools, you have options to attach or to correlate domains and countries. For example, you have a .NET domain. .NET is not related to any country, but if you go to Webmaster Tools, you can say .NET is going to be associated to Argentina, for example. So there are solutions there, and search engines are doing a pretty good job with that. So no need to be hosting every single website in different countries. This is an example of Google Webmaster Tools, how we can associate every directory to different countries. We have a main domain, in this case is transferlbc.com. We are having subdirectories or directories by country, and we can go ahead and associate every country for every directory. And one more example that the IP is not so important. In this case, we have a query in Google Portugal, google.pt. We also select the option pages from Portugal. This option is checked when I was doing this query. The website is hosted or located in Canada, but it's ranking pretty good for a certain keywords. So the IP is Canadian, but they're ranking pretty good in Google Portugal. This is the country they are targeting, and it's working pretty good. So this is an example of how this could work without complicated infrastructure. Another thing to have in mind is distribute XML sitemaps by subdirectory or country, and using, again, Webmaster Tools, you can associate an XML file listing your URLs for this country without a specific country. So search engines, Google specifically, is going to understand pretty good that you want to, this part of your website, this directory of your website is going to be related to a specific country. Rule of thumb, please don't mix languages in the same page, even in the same directory. If we have a directory for Italian language, don't mix. We have to be consistent all along this directory. So mixing languages all across this folder or pages is not the right way to handle. So we have to be very careful, and we have to be consistent with the structure we created from the very beginning at the top directory. And some few more topics. Search engines are pretty good detecting languages. It's not needed anymore to say or to mention or label the language you are using. I guess most of you have seen when you're navigating pages in different languages, Google Chrome, for example, is telling you if you want to translate the page, because they are detecting the language of the page. They know the language of your browser, so they are trying to offer you a translation. So if you want to use language definition anyway, you can do it the right way, using the proper HTML tags. And after that, right after the HTML declaration, you have to include the right charset definition after the head. Okay, let's see. Before going ahead, I have some few questions, but I would like to make the questions round at the very end, and we can come back to every specific page if needed. So another nice topic is how to manage the language in an international environment. We want the user experience to be as good as possible. We want to avoid users clicking around, selecting languages or selecting currency or selecting countries. We don't want to disturb them with pop-ups or home pages with country or language selection. So again, it depends. In every scenario it could be different, but the best solution we have been testing with quite a good success from user experience is detect the language of the browser. It's going to give you a nice idea of the language of the user. It's not going to be accurate 100%, but it's a good indicator. So from server side, you can, every time you have a HTTP request, you can guess the language of the browser, and you can redirect the user to the right language of or part of the website related to the language. We can always have a language by default. That could be English or any other, depending on where you are. But language detection and redirection from server side is the right option. A second option we can have is detect the IP of the country, geolocation, automatically, so we can combine those two. We can have situations where a country, for example, I had a situation actually, a client where they were clients were users, were in Spain, so the IP was indicating they were in Spain, but most of them, they were browsing in English because they were tourists or they were people from the rest of Europe living in the Mediterranean coast of Spain. So addressing them to the Spanish part of the website was not the right option. So with a combination of geolocation, IP, and language browser, we could manage to send everyone to the right option. Of course, we are not going to guess 100% again, but this is why we are going to offer users to change their options and use cookies to store their preferences. So when they're coming back, they don't need to be, we already know the language or the currency that they want to, the preference, so it's more easier. Yeah, just last advice. So these redirections from one language to another in a website, once we detect the language of the country, should be done server side. Avoid to do it with JavaScript because this could be causing some indexability problems, and I have seen sites where they only have one language indexed and the rest of the languages are not indexed at all, so they don't have any traffic, organic traffic coming to the site of every country. So let's get ahead with the content localization, content optimization for international SEO situations. And I will explain that with some examples, and along we are talking, we will describe or we will list the tools we can use to localize content. In this case, in this example, we have a company trying to sell luxury real estate in Spain. In Spain, we talk Spanish, but Spanish is also spoken in 27 languages in countries. So we have to guess which is the right translation for luxury real estate for a particular country in this example for Spain. We go to Google Translate, and the translation we have for luxury real estate is de bienes raíces de lujo, what is completely wrong for Spanish in Spain. We have, I don't know if many of you have, you guess we have search translated. You can search Google at the same time the results are translated. So for this particular case, luxury real estate, I was translating while searching to Spanish from English, sorry. And if you see the results, I've been highlighting local indicators like Costa Rica or Miami. So this is telling me that luxury real estate translation, the bienes raíces de lujo, it's the right one for many Latin American countries, but I cannot see nothing related to any city in Spain. So I can guess this is not the right translation for the Spanish in Spain. It could be the right one for Costa Rica, in example, or Miami in US. We don't have to forget that in US we have a big community of Latin people there. So another way we can check localization is just going to the country-specific search engine. We can go to Google Spain, google.es, and search pages only in Spain. And we can compare the results we are having for the two options, propiedad inmobiliaria. This could be the right translation. And we can see the number of results compared to the number of results we are going to get from bienes raíces. This is the wrong one. So the number, it's a huge difference. And also in the first result, we see Madrid is appearing right there. And in the lower part of the screen, we can see Colombia or Mexico. So we can have, this is giving me more signs, more insight that which one is the right one, the right keyword to be translated in Spanish to Spain. So an example of how different could be the same concept in different countries using the same language. In example, we have wholesale, but we have at least 3 different ways to explain this concept depending which country we are. Spanish from Spain, it could be venta al por mayor. In Argentina, they call the same thing venta mayorista, and in Mexico, they call it mayoreo. So if we are trying to translate and localize our Spanish targeting different Latin American countries, this is the right way to do it. I'm talking quite a lot about Europe and Latin America because this is the areas I know better, but the same rules, the same advice could be in the other side of the world for Asia or Asian countries. So if we compare these 3 translations with Google Insights for Search, it's a nice tool because it's going to give you not only the volume of searches for these keywords, but it's going to indicate in a quite graphical way the countries where these possible translations are associated to. For example, venta al mayorista, the red one, you could see Argentina having a long red line. Mayoreo, the yellow-orange one, you could see at the bottom of the screen Mexico with a long indicator. And venta al por mayor, it should be, the blue one is for Spain. So Insight for Search is one of my favorite tools to check localization of translations. Some other examples in different languages, in this case Portuguese, the English word for train. It's very different in Portuguese for Brazil, it's trem. In Portuguese for Portugal is comboio. So you can see, even if you don't speak any Portuguese, you can see how different they are. And sometimes it's just a letter. The difference is just a letter. Curaçao, it's a letter different from Portuguese in Brazil and Portuguese for Portugal. So these are the little indicators that search engines are using to guess which country you are trying to target. Again, using Google Insights for search, we can see how different by region these words could be. Google AdWords keyword tool can help also with the translation, with the localization of translation. While searching for keywords, you can specify the country and the language. So it's going to help you quite a lot to get the specific translations for every country in every language. Just to summarize this content localization part of the webinar, usually Google is the search engine doing a better job for multilingual support. They usually have the most accurate data, and the good thing is they have free tools. They have Google Translate, Translated Search, Local Google, Google for the specific countries, or Google Insights for search. Also, you can get other major search engines in different areas of the world, like Yandex for Russian, Yahoo for Japanese, or Baidu for Chinese. In any case, I would like to mention here, don't translate, again, directly from your language to the languages you want to target. Try to get local people to translate and localize your content for you. In very special cases where you are getting too technical. So if possible, get contact local people to do this work for you. One of my favorite examples, this company was buying these domains, sportsfootball.us, sportsfootball.de for Germany, for Spain and Italy. And this is an epic fail. Why? Our traditional football, or what we understand for football in Europe, is not football in US, it's soccer. The way it's written in German is Fußball, in Spanish is football, and for Italian language it's not football, it's calcio. So if we go to Google Insight and we compare this football with the right translation for every country, in the case of Italy, for example, for every 5 searches in Google IT, Google Italy, you find 68 for calcio. So they are losing a big chunk of the traffic here. Of course, sometimes you want to have your brand in your domain, so branding is an important thing to take into account here. But if possible, if you are going to buy domains by country, try to use the right keyword for every country. A pair of bad solutions while trying to localize content. In this case, this is a Spanish website selling sport products, and you have the typical icons to translate the website, but these icons are sending you to Google Translator. So it's a very poor user experience. The website is breaking. You can see a mixture of languages. Something is translated to German, but the banners are in Spanish, so this is quite a nightmare. Also, the graphical part of the website is breaking. It's not consistent at all, and the user experience is very poor. So in this case, I would not prefer to do it and try to focus only in one country. Second example of how not to do that is this Canadian website. The website is great. They're doing a great job for Canadian people, but at the moment you select the language, the only thing you have translated is the form, the booking form. So if I could navigate all the website in English, at the moment I reach the form, I could do it also in English. If I'm coming from the Netherlands, for example, also I can speak some English. Is not the right way to handle that. Offer me the whole website in Dutch or in Spanish, Italian, or any other language, and be consistent along all the navigation. Link building. There are no magic bullets here. It's a question of consistency. So if we are having different websites, different domains for every country we are going to target, or we are having directories by country or language, the right way to handle that, or a good indicator for search engines that we want to split or get relevant this folder for every specific country, is to point links consistently, accordingly, from countries to the specific folder, and use the localized anchor text in links. Coming back to the wholesale example we were talking at the beginning, if I'm linking from Spain to the ES folder, I will use venta al por mayor. That's the right keyword I'm going to use for the anchor text in links. And I want the links coming from Argentina to my Argentinian folder, use venta al mayorista. So this is the right way to do it. Let's get ahead. We will talk about the analytics, some analytics for international situations, and then we will have the questions and answer round. So having global data, all the traffic coming from different countries all together, is pretty much useless. It's nice to have a global number, but it's not going to tell me anything in deep for every country. So how can I take any decision based on global data? Useless. So segmentation, once more, is the key. In that particular example we have at the bottom, we have this domain, transferlbc.com. We have different folders or directories by country, so we can create a filter to filter the traffic for every specific country, and we can guess what is happening. One country in Dutch is doing great, the English part of this website is doing not so good, so we can compare. And we can create advanced segments combining language and region or country to show how effective is your SEO strategy. So in this case, internet has got no barriers, no physical borders or political. So if I have a website in Spain, I want to know how many of my users are coming from the rest of the world, or how many are coming from Latin American countries. So I can create a filter based on language and region or country. And these are the numbers I'm going to have. Coming back to this example, I have a site for Spain. We have sites for the rest of the Latin American countries. We have a strategy domain by country. So how much traffic is coming from Latin America to the Spanish site? 78% is coming from Spain. That's nice. Only 3.38 is coming from non-South or Central America or Spain. That's not a number you should be worrying about. Most of the Canadian websites, they have like between 4, 5, 6% of traffic coming from US. Could be a good number. If you don't want to focus on US, if you are a Canadian website, it's the wrong number if you are trying to get across the border. But in this particular case, we are having close to a 20% of visitors coming from Latin American countries, and this is something I don't want to have. I want to split my traffic, but that's why we are having domains by country. I want the Argentinians go to the Argentinian site. So this is a nice way to guess if the localizing SEO strategy is working or not. And before finishing, we have a filter to guess the keywords and the specific search engine by country driving traffic to my website. Google Analytics is telling me the search engine where the people is coming, but it's not telling me if it's Google.Italy, Google.Canada, or any other Yandex Russian people. So with this simple filter, we can create getting the referral and moving the referral to the campaign source. Once we go to the keyword report in analytics, we can pull down the source in the drop-down, and it's going to be pretty easy to guess the keyword the people is using and the search engine. You're going to find quite interesting search engines over there. So comparing countries, languages, search engines by country, and keywords is going to help you quite a lot to localize much better your content and to improve your SEO strategy for multilingual and international situations. So that's everything, and we will go ahead with the questions you have been showing in the questions. So let's go ahead. Hi, Blas. I have heard from Mad Catz that Google gives the same weight to subdirectories and subdomains. This is country or what we are presenting, or do you have any data that supports that we're saying? Yeah. Google is not playing in favor of any of the three possibilities we have, subdirectories or subdomains. They are just listing the options, but I could test several times. It's not easy to convince a client having subdomains to change everything to subdirectories, but in the few cases I could test doing that, changing from subdirectories to directories, and the results were very positive. So I'm supporting this idea with data. It's a pity I cannot show you numbers due to privacy, of course, but I will try to do it if I can convince them to give me any data. But it's working pretty good. Most of the people talking in favor of subdomains, they never try to change that. And if you don't try, you never know. Another question from Blas. You are very active today, my friend. How do you set local sites on other webmaster tools different than Google, Yandex, Baidu? Good question. Yandex is having some kind of webmaster tools, but I don't remember they having this kind of options. They are quite local. Baidu is a search engine I don't really know as good as any other. So, and even Bing is not having, if I remember well, is not having this option. So the only thing we can do is do things right, try to bring the more signals that we are targeting specific countries, and just wait and see how they're doing. We will provide a copy of the charts being shown, Jerry. Yeah, we will upload the presentation to a post later in our blog. You can see the address of the blog, the screen you see right now. So we will be adding the presentation. In fact, prior to this webinar, there are 3 more posts talking about the topics we discussed today. So you can review this post in the blog with some more details, and we will be posting that too. What about One more question from David. What about the Googlebot being always based on the Mountain View US? Google has got different Googlebots around the world. So I don't think it's something we should care about. I don't know exactly. Well, let me check. Version environment view. I don't know. Redirect. Any risk to be redirected always to the US version of the website? No. Okay. If I understand well your question, you always want to have a default language for a website, having different or managing different languages. So the best option is to have the default language associated to the right country. I mean, if Google is coming to index my site in the Spanish area of my site, the default language there should be Spanish. I have seen a few times that a website is by default is in English, and they're having issues with the indexability thing. So when they're indexing any other language, it's indexed in English, for example. So that's not the right way to handle that. You want to associate directly the country you want to target with the default language for this site. Localized URLs. How can you leverage the domain history and relevancy of the domain with your suggestions for localized domains? Leverage the domain history. Not sure what you're asking here, Blas, but the URL is the first ID identification of any page. So if a particular page is in French, the URL should be, and the keywords and the structure of this URL should be in French. It makes no sense at all to have a website, a page, or a whole part of the website in a certain language and the URLs in English. So try to be as consistent as possible, and it will be working.
Annie, I think part of Blas's question there might be around the fact that in the multilingual environment, your primary domain that's been around for the longest time has a lot of reputation and history. And as you expand into more new languages, what's the best way to take advantage of that goodwill that's been built up with the search engines with your old URL?
Yeah, if you have a domain and with old domain with good relevancy, it's not going to harm you anyway to have different languages in the same domain. I don't think if you do it properly, that's the whole point. So again, the best tip to have in mind is consistency.
Right. So from that perspective, if you've got a really great domain with lots of good history and reputation, instead of creating new localized URLs for your local presence, are you then recommending that they go with the directory structure for language and geography?
Yeah, this is something I would do because as I was mentioning, directory is going to inherit somehow the relevancy of the domain. So you have a relevant domain in English, for example, because you have been targeting North America, but for any reason you want to target Latin Americans, so you can create a directory there, and it's going to inherit, it's going to help you rank better and faster the Spanish language part of the website. Again, it's a question of consistency. If you do it right, it's not going to harm you anyway. The second option could be to have a complete different domain. As we were talking at the beginning, we can have the same domain with country TLD. It's going to take a little bit more time to rank better for these countries because you are not inheriting the relevancy of the main domain. But in the long run, it could be better. So it depends on every situation. It's different.
Great.
So, yep. How does using subdirectories interact with the SERP site links? Good question, Fabio. You got to be really, really relevant to have side links in a subdirectory, but you can. Again, side links is something that you cannot control. You can only remove some of those side links if you think they're not good enough. Google is rewarding your site if they think there is a good relevancy there. A few times I have seen that, but if your part of your directory for a specific country is really relevant for that country, you can be rewarded with side links. Why not? So Timothy, what the URL file naming convention should be used for special characters common in non-speaking, non-English languages? Yeah, I was thinking about the Russian websites. Good point. Traditionally, if you go to Yandex, for example, and you perform some searches there, you're going to see obviously pages in Russian language, but the URLs, most of the URLs are in English. So this is going in the contrary. This is right the other way I was talking before about consistency between the language in the URL and the language in the page. But for historical reasons, Yandex is supporting, they know Russian characters, Cyrillic, were not supported. So this is a particularity of this search engine they know about. So you can have URLs in English while the site is in Russian. Right now, they're accepting Cyrillic characters in the URLs, but I guess right now a few percentage of Russian websites are using them for historical reasons and because they already know this is an issue and they handle that properly. So no problem at all. Okay, Ryan, what about multi-currency sites with one language? Sorry, wait a second. Sorry, I did something wrong with the presentation. Currency. Again, we were talking about consistency between language of the browser, geolocation, and currency is the third variable in this equation, in this formula. Usually, we can associate by default a currency for a country. If we have an e-commerce, an international e-commerce, and I'm buying from Spain, I expect my currency to be in euros. But for any reason, I could buy from outside. I could be buying from Canada in the Spanish side. So geolocation is going to tell me that I'm located in Canada, although I am buying in a European store. So I can directly bring the user currency or the user associated to the country of this user. And then we can offer, again, as I was mentioning, the option to change that. Last week I was buying a book for my wife in Amazon.com. I was comparing the prices between Amazon.com and Amazon.ca for the same book. It was way cheaper in the US part of Amazon. I don't know why. It's a big difference in some products, but I wanted to check the prices in euros because I was paying with my Visa from Spain, with my Visa credit card from Spain. So I'm more used to euros, so I was just selecting the currency. But by default, all the numbers of the transaction were in US dollars. Okay, more questions. Should the language be represented by a single country's flag? Yeah, this could offend a little bit. I mean, if you are Argentinian, why it should be represented by a Spanish flag? To do it properly, and if you are really serious with your strategy, you should be having the proper flag for every country, because we are going to have different directories, websites, or subdirectories by country. So it's going to help me. This is more a user experience thing. It's going to help me to very easy spot the right area for my local country. So I should be using, if possible, I should be using the right flag. Apple.com, they have a nice page listing all the countries where they have stores or where they are doing something, and they have a flag for every country. So if possible, yeah, do it right. It's users will be feeling more comfortable.
I think with that, Annie, the flag isn't so much communicating the language, but the local version of the language. So if it's a picture of a Spanish flag, people will expect to see Spanish written in a way for people in Spain and not focused on Mexico or Argentina. And so it's a user experience, and it's telling you what to expect. And if you're looking at those examples like you had for wholesale and how they're different words, it's setting an expectation of how it's going to be written, because it's Spanish is Spanish, but Spanish isn't Spanish.
Yeah, you're right. It's again, it's a more an expectation, a user experience thing. So make everybody feel as comfortable as possible. They can spot pretty easy where they're going to find their content for this user. So one more question from Ryan. Should a link on the homepage to change currencies use a query string like currency USD? Parameters in URL are never a good option from SEO point of view. So there are some other ways to handle the user preferences. We can use cookies. We can use server-side cookies, but they're going to expire after the session is finished. We can handle the information of the user if they are registered. If this is a website where you can, or you have to register to make a purchase, this is the typical situation in e-commerce. You can store all these values. You can store the language they want to navigate, the currency, the country where they are buying. Also for security reasons, it's almost a must to check geo-IP to compare if the visa was issued in a country and where they are buying. I sometimes have problems because my visa is from Spain and I'm buying from Canada, so I have to be very aware of that. But as if possible, avoid any parameter in URL, basically because this can end up mixing your indexation, so you can end up having quite a lot of duplicated content. You can have all your content duplicated just because you have a currency equals USD or currency equals CAD for Canada. So if possible, try to remove all parameters and handling that with cookies or sessions in your database.
Well, it looks like well, let's do one more question here. We're right at 10 o'clock. We want to respect everybody's time and commitments for the day.
Yep.
But we'll take this one last question here, Eddie.
Yeah, we have a question from Fabio.
Sorry, I was wrong. It wasn't a question.
Sorry?
It wasn't actually a question. It's just a thank you.
Okay. Okay. Some Spanish. Thank you, Fabio. Okay.
So that'll wrap it up for today's webinar on International SEO. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, Annie, for presenting. If there are any further follow-up questions, please feel free to contact us at our email addresses or via Twitter. Also, keep your eyes open for future webinars by VKI Studios. We will be targeting to do one webinar a month, usually towards the last week of the month, on topics such as SEO, paid search, analytics, and conversion testing and online persuasion. And so January's date hasn't been locked in yet, but towards the end of January, that session will be on online persuasion. So keep your eyes out for that, and we hope to have you join us then. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Muchas gracias. So, yeah, as John was mentioning, here we are. Here you have, sorry for the mixing, you have our images in the screen. Thank you.